The dawn of civilization. Primitive. Dangerous. Exciting. The handwriting is on the wall. If the human race is ever going to amount to anything, it needs
the most civilized caveman I have ever seen.
Look who's come out of his cave.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is James from Cave Dweller Music. I am joined today by my co-host Brendan. We have two guests for you today. We have Curtis and Aliyah from C Squared Media. They're here to represent the PR side of things and the podcast. So thanks you so much for coming on. Appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you for
having us.
Anytime. For anyone who's not familiar with your work, which I'm sure most people by now would be, you made a pretty prolific name for yourselves. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about the company, about yourselves, and what your mission is, I guess, as a business?
Sure, I'll start because I basically started in PR about 12 years ago, I think, 2012, 2013. What is that, 10, 11 years ago? I don't even fucking know anymore. Anyways, I've been doing it for a while. I first started working with a woman named Barry Ann. She now runs Fieta Productions, I think is the name of it. It's a label.
It's just Fia, because it's Gaelic.
Fia? I don't know how the hell you pronounce it, but okay. Fia.
Yeah, because the DH is silent.
Oh, yeah.
It's Gaelic.
I know the label.
Yeah, so I started working with Barry Ann. She had a label called Black Birch back at the time. And she took me on, and I did a little bit of work with her for like a year and a half-ish or something like that. And then I just went and started doing my own thing because Black Birch was winding down. She also was running a label at the time that was running down. So I wanted to continue doing it. So I went on full-time as PR, started Dewar PR, basically soloed it until 2021. And then all of a sudden, Corinne Westbrook just kind of popped up in my inbox one day. She was a journalist at Metal Injection at the time. And we just clicked, and she started helping me with stuff. And 4 months later, we were a company. About a week after I met Corinne, Aliyah just popped up out of the blue. She'd listened to the podcast I'd been on previously. And she somehow got my mentions. And I don't know, 3 weeks later, you were working with us as well. And then Holly Royal, another woman that we work with, just popped up magically too. She had listened to a podcast episode and we clicked with her. So we invited her to come along, and somehow I managed to turn it into a business. And that's the origin story of that. We initially started it as a podcast. Me and Corey did. So the first year or so, it was primarily me and Corey doing episodes. A person that used to work with us named Gaia did a lot of episodes, and then Aliyah came on. She started wanting to get involved in it. Well, she was already on, but she wanted to get involved with the podcast, I mean. And then the beginning of this year, because she just kept wanting more and more to do it, and me and Corey were getting more and more busy. And Corey also does notfest.com. She's the managing editor there, and she manages a couple bands. So for time's sakes, we just kind of decided that me and Aliyah would mainly wear the hat, with Aliyah being in charge of it. So since January 1st, 2023, the podcast is now run by her. I am generally the co-host, but sometimes Holly comes on. Corinne's supposed to come on a few times as well. She hasn't yet, but she's going to be at some point. So it's kind of like two things. We got the podcast and we got the business. The podcast isn't really an extension of the business, even though it kind of is. It's mainly an educational tool, and it's used to help us figure out what we want to know a lot of the times, and just to help other people. So like Aliyah and I will kind of figure out who we want to talk to, and we'll just invite them on. And luckily we've been able to get most people that we've asked. I think we've only had maybe 2 people turn us down. I think George from Cannibal Corpse was one of them. And other than that, I don't think there was anyone else. Actually, no, there's a couple label people, not many though. But pretty much anyone we've asked, we've luckily been able to get. So that's been kind of cool. Aliyah, why don't you give your side of it?
Sure. So like he said, I came on, I think I was their second or third guest on the podcast, just because I was
Number 2, baby.
Yeah, because people, they were like, hey, we need some guests. And I commented an eyes emoji. And then they were like, yeah, come on. So when I first went on the podcast, I came on as a graphic designer because that's my profession. And then after that, I kind of wanted to get involved with the interviewing side of things, because I would listen to the interviews, and I would think, well, I have this question, I have that question. I would like to be involved with interviews and get my questions answered. And so I did that for a while. And I think that just because of my levels of preparation that I would do for the podcast, Corey and Curtis saw fit to have me continue doing interviews, which I was grateful for. And then towards the end of last year, there had been some issues with the podcast that I wanted to fix, particularly with the branding of the podcast. It was just called C Squared, and it's impossible to search for it. So I really wanted to make it something that explained what the podcast was about and something that was searchable. So that's where the desire for the rebrand came from. So though the podcast it is still a part of C Squared as a company, but it's just called Heavy Business because that's what we talk about. We talk about music business on the podcast. And the goal, the mission of the podcast, if you will, is really to, on top of educating myself and Curtis, and what I will say about that is that if you are in any industry, you should always be learning from other people in your industry. Industries are always evolving, and it's important to stay on top of those things. And the best way to do that is to maintain a conversation with your peers and colleagues. So that's what we're doing. On top of that, we're also helping musicians and potential future clients as well by offering them information on how to do things themselves. And then if they ever get to the point where they feel like they don't want to do it themselves anymore, then they can reach out to us and we can help them.
I love that. I think it's fantastic that you're giving that advice away. It's one of those things where a musician is no longer just a musician. There have to be so many different things in the industry. They have to be the musician, they have to be a publicist, they have to be a social media personality. It's not what it used to be, where you just played the music and then went and played a show and everyone else handled the other stuff.
Right. I mean, once you get to a certain level of success, you can hire other people to handle those aspects for you. But it's really hard to do that early on when you're first starting out. And for a lot of people, writing copy for social media, like writing the actual post, it's so exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't know what to say. You don't know how to say it. It's a lot.
That's actually my 9-to-5 job. I'm a social media coordinator. So, yeah, it's
there you go.
it's
You know how hard it can be for people.
Yeah, it's a job. Yeah, it's. I mean, we've said this to a lot of people who've come on the show. It's a double-edged sword how things have progressed at the industry. It's easier than ever to get your music out there, but it's harder than ever to get noticed. So if you can put the effort in and meet the right people and make those connections, it's a game changer.
Yeah. And those two things are exact functions of each other. You know, the reason why it's harder to get heard is because it's easier to get out there. So, Curtis, I saw you were going to say something.
I was nodding my head in agreement. I'm just going with flow.
Okay.
I mean, Curtis, you've been doing this for a while. What would you say sort of in the last decade or so have been some of the biggest changes in that aspect of how bands have to perform to get noticed?
Oh, it's kind of hard to say because you're going to hear conflicting advice from so many different people on what you have to do. I mean, how do I put this? One key thing that I think a lot of bands need to do, and most people are probably not going to like me saying this, but they have to actually network and they have to actually talk to journalists. They actually have to talk to other people. They have to schmooze or whatever you want to call it. Really good example. I'm going to toot Aliyah's horn right here for a second. She hates it when I do it, but I'm doing it anyways. Aliyah plays in a band called Shielded Wings. So, you back?
Sorry, it's just closing a window is a little loud outside.
Okay, no worries. I was like, did I lose him? So Aliyah plays in a band called Shielded Wings. So she's been in the band for a couple of years. Basically, she's turned into their manager, business end of things type person. So she's a really good example. So she started working on a podcast. She started working with us. She started connecting with other people, connecting with other musicians. She frequents social media, put in a lot of work. And now she's actually getting, that band is actually getting a lot of attention. They're playing on different festivals. You've opened for a number of big bands already now in the last year and a half, primarily just due to networking. I mean, obviously the band is good. They're really good. They have to be good. You have to have good music. but they're an independent band. They're unsigned. They were inactive for 12 years or something like that, 10 years.
The inactivity was like total inactivity was more like 7 years before, but because like 2012 was when the hiatus started, and then 2019 is when we started posting on social media again.
So you guys they were inactive for ages, and she went and she's basically taken that band just from her networking skills, because she's the main person that does it. Her and Laura, their singer.
Not just.
No, not just, but main, like it or lump it, main people. Her and Laura are the main driving forces on social media. So she's using her business acumen. She's managed to get that band back in people's frames of reference now. They're probably going to end up being signed in the next year or two, I would imagine. They're probably going to end up going on tour. I know I'm tooting your horn, but it's true.
It's very optimistic.
Maybe.
I appreciate it.
I'm just saying that she's a really good example of someone that has taken a band that was completely inactive, turned them so that way there's a big public perception on them. They've been featured at Knotfest, they've been featured at Decibel, they've been in a whole bunch of magazines, big opening spots. Sorry to toot your horn, Aliyah, but...
Well, I mean, and that's fair. It's a fair thing to say also that that's another reason, or it's another, and maybe not a reason, but it's another benefit of doing the podcast. And it isn't my main reason for doing the podcast, but I think one of my main motivators from doing the podcast is to learn. And it's just a byproduct of that I actually get to meet and talk to a lot of professionals. And that is a method of networking.
100%. But yeah, that's my main answer right there. Is like you got to go out. You also got to go to shows. You got to meet people. You have to be online all the time. You know that's what you got to do. And if you don't want to do it,
I was just gonna say, I think going to shows is so important. Like I think there are a lot of bands that don't do that, and it's like if you don't respect your local scene, if you don't participate in it, why do you expect your local scene to care about you?
Right. Yeah, it's very one-sided.
And you can't just go to the big shows. You got to go to the small shows, and you got to go to the medium-sized shows. And all.
Or if you're going to the big show, go early enough to catch the local opener.
Exactly.
You know, like small things.
Yeah. Did I answer your question, or did I give you guys a big run? Okay.
I think you did. No, I definitely it was in a very specific story-based way, but yes, I definitely think you did. But I love the fact that you pushed going to those small shows, because I'm a huge fan of that. I live in San Diego. So we're kind of spoiled down here for the shows that come through, and like most of the shows I go to cost $8 to $12 or something like that. Absolutely nothing. And those are some of the best shows. I love, like, because the band will stick around and talk to you afterwards. That they want to hear feedback. They really appreciate the fact that you came out and took the time to actually listen to them. So
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I agree. One other thing I just want to comment on just about going to the shows is you also got to go to a lot of shows. Anyway.
Here's another thing.
Go ahead, Lee.
Kind of on the same topic is that if you're opening for a show, stay for the whole show. Yeah. And I that just seemed obvious to me forever. Like it's always seemed like obvious. You stay the whole show if you're able to, unless you have to work at 4 a.m. the next morning or something. But like, I mean, I get thanked for that by promoters, by other bands. They say, thank you for sticking around. And I'm like, is this a rare thing?
Yep.
And apparently it is. So I advise doing that too.
Yep.
It's common courtesy.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a few things that I've noticed that people don't do that I would have thought common sense and common courtesy. Like, I'm sure you guys get this as well, PR stuff all the time, but how many bands don't engage or thank or share reviews? That's always blowing my mind. Like someone's taken the time and effort to write something about you that's complimentary. And even if it's not complimentary, it's just like, kind of neutral. Someone's still taking the time to listen to what you made and write about it. And like, because I mean, I write a lot of reviews for our site. And sometimes when especially a smaller band, like a couple of hundred followers don't say thank you or share it, I'm like, oh, okay. That's like surprising.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to get yourself blacklisted is what it is.
That's definitely something we encourage our clients to do.
That's good.
As a PR, is to always say thank you at least and share it if you can.
Yeah.
I also like it when the bands will actually go and DM the writer and say thank you, to be honest.
Yes. As a writer, we really appreciate that. It makes you form a connection with the publication, which makes them more likely to cover you in the future. I mean, like if you leave a lasting impression on a publication, they're going to cover you again.
100%. 100%. I agree on that.
Yeah, it's all about networking, like you said, and those relationships that you build. It's so important.
Yep. And you got to do it in everything. I mean, like, well, usually what I'll do, I don't do this all the time, but Aliyah knows I do this and Corey knows I do this, but 90% of the time, if I get someone, I've only started doing this in the last year, I got to admit, but it just seems like it's common courtesy. So like if you get an Instagram follower and they don't seem like a bot, actually message them and just say, hey, nice to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
I do it all the time. I do like all the fucking time. I don't care who it is. Like as long as they don't look like a bot or someone that's like a, trying to make me join the Illuminati, I'll usually will DM them. I'll just say, hey, I'll just be like, hey, nice to meet you. And like if they're obviously in a band, I'll ask them about their band. I won't necessarily listen to their band. And I'm not trying to hit them up for anything. It's just a matter of common courtesy. You know what I mean? Just like someone, hello, how you doing type of thing. And even if they don't message you back, whatever, who cares?
That's actually good advice.
I'll do that a lot too.
That's great. I mean, I've never thought of actually doing that with Instagram followers. That's really good advice. I definitely with like friend requests on Facebook. Like one of the rudest things anyone can do is just add you as a friend, not say hi, and just send you a link to their music. Like that is so off-putting. I
invite you to their band's fan group.
Yeah, or their page or something. It's like you never even said hello to me. Like that. I'm just going to unfriend you.
It's like, bam, here's this. Yeah,
I have a small rant that I'm going to give, and you guys got to listen to it.
Okay.
All right.
I've gone off. If anybody's ever listened to any past podcasts I've ever done, I've always gone off about people DMing random shit. And I have to admit, I'm one of the biggest offenders of that because, like I said, I will just randomly DM anybody and just say hello to them. I don't fucking care. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. Although I do get very suspicious many times when someone just randomly DMs me with a, hey, how's it going? I hate that. Hate that so much.
I hate it too.
If someone just DMs me and I don't know them and says, hey, how's it going? And nothing else.
Immediately I'm like, what do you want?
Exactly.
What are you trying to get from me?
Yeah. Like get to the point. Tell me what you want. If it's just, hi, nice to meet you. Cool. But if it's something else, no. Because I got to admit, I always used to say, don't fucking DM me if I don't know you. But I've changed my tune a lot on that in the last 2 years because that's how I met Aliyah. That's how I met Corey.
I commented on a tweet. I didn't DM
it wasn't a DM,
it's different.
but it was still social.
Because a public forum, when you have your tweets, you expect people to comment on them.
Yes.
True. Corey DM'd me out of the blue. And so did Holly, I believe. So, but anyways, I've changed my tune on that a little bit, but I think it's all in the matter of how you approach it.
Yes.
And you got to have in your intentions on things. Like if your intention is just to get information and pump people for information, it will show through. And it has to be legitimate if you're going to actually do the DM mode. So there's my rant. Just had to say it.
No, I mean, if someone introduces themselves like, hey, nice to meet you. Thanks for accepting my friend request. I happen to be in this band. I see you're a music reviewer. Would you mind checking it out? Totally fine.
That's fine.
I have no problem with that. If it's literally just link and nothing else, that's a whole different story.
I hate that. Although I do admit once I clicked one of those and it was actually really, really good. And I ended up getting a client out of that. It was the most random thing. I probably will never happen again, but I just heard, I actually clicked it and I was like, fuck, I'll just check it today. And I was like, wow, this is really good. And I was like, I need to work for you, please. So
that's awesome. Did you tell them like, hey man, like great music, but change your strategy?
I didn't because it worked. So I wasn't going to fucking, it worked. I mean, they got out of the deal. So, I mean, I'm not going to knock the hustle if it worked that time. So why not?
I guess so.
Yeah. There are exceptions to every rule.
That's true. Yeah. What's that expression? A broken clock is right once a day.
Yep.
Twice a day.
Twice a day. That's what it is. Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Yep.
But only if it's not a digital clock that's showing the 24 hours.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, the 00 thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Brendan, I know you had some more local questions. I know you enjoys asking these, so I'll let you fire a couple of those off.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had a couple that weren't so local too. I was going to ask, like, what was your, like, do you ever get, like, nervous before an interview, like, when you first started out? And then did that kind of fade away, or does that still happen from time to time?
I'll let
Like the
Aaliyah
jitters
answer
and
that
all,
one
like,
first.
am I getting excited? You know?
I'll let Aaliyah answer that one first.
Sure. I'll still sometimes get nervous if it's somebody that I have admired for a very long time,
Mhm.
and I really don't want to make a bad impression. Sometimes I'll still get nervous, and I was definitely more nervous when I first started interviewing people, which for me that's a lot more recent than Curtis. Curtis has been doing it a long time. I've only been doing it for about a year. So that's another reason why I would prep so much. I'm like, I gotta have 10 questions listed out specifically, and I have to be prepared. And now I always prepare still, but I don't have to have a list of 10 questions. I just have a few topics that I want to explore, and I know that I can kind of go from there. But yes, I did used to be a lot more nervous. Still sometimes get nervous before interviewing people that that I have known of and respected for a long time.
Yeah. Right on.
I do have to just comment before I say my thing. Aaliyah, it does never come across as nervous in the last year and a half or whatever since she's been doing it. She always comes across as a pro. So you always do a great job. I did toot your horn again. For me, I don't get nervous anymore. Weirdly enough, I've been doing this. I mean, I started doing interviews as a journalist back in 2012, and I don't know. I just don't anymore because it's just people. So I don't really care. You know what I mean? It's like, what's there really to be nervous about half the time? I have had it where people are nervous with me, which I always find kind of strange. And I know that they've been nervous with me and Aaliyah at the same time. I kind of look at it from that viewpoint. Like if someone's going to be nervous around me, why would I need to be nervous around someone else? You know what I mean? Like I go like, we're not big fishes, and even if that other person is a big fish, what is there to be nervous about? They agree.
Well, let me say really quick from the perspective of being an artist, that nervousness can just come from, it's going to be recorded and it's going to be published, and you want to make sure you don't say the wrong things, and you want to make sure that you articulate the things that you're thinking accurately. So I think it makes sense as an artist to be nervous too.
Fair. Like for me, I just kind of go like, no,
regardless of the popularity tier of the interviewer.
Totally. I'm just at the point now where it doesn't matter to me what I say anymore. I mean, everybody's heard me say everything, so I don't think I'm going to say anything to get myself canceled at this point. If I do,
I think for us, we really like doing the long form interviews because it gives people a lot of time to become comfortable. And then
they can get canceled when they say something dumb. Bam!
Yeah, exactly. It's a trap.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we always find not with you obviously because you podcast yourself, so it's different. But if someone's an artist that doesn't do much of that and they're kind of new to the whole thing, we always find the second half of the interview is always really smooth and comfortable compared to the first because they're kind of like, oh, this isn't so hard. We're just having a conversation. This is kind of fun, and they're really loose.
Same with us too, 100%. And one thing you guys will probably notice too, if you haven't already, just as an aside. Is the more you guys do the podcast, you guys don't do video though is kind of the problem. I was going to say you will get people approaching you at shows and stuff and asking you to come on the podcast and stuff, but it might be a bit of a problem if you don't have video. But
right,
yeah. I don't know why I brought that up. I'm just saying.
No, good point.
Step it up.
But don't put this one because I have my glasses on and I don't wear those on video.
That's funny.
What other questions did you have, Brendan?
I was going to say, has anyone ghosted you for an interview, and did that discourage you from wanting to do more?
On Heavy Business? I know I wasn't.
Don't think we have actually. I really don't think we have. But there have been times when we thought we were being ghosted, but the person was just late.
Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't feel discouraged by it. I was just like, okay, who do we interview instead? Or how do we, because we have a schedule that we like to keep two episodes a week. So if somebody cancels on us or doesn't show up, then we need to have some more content. So sometimes Curtis and I will be like, or if someone cancels last minute, we'll be like, well, what's a topic that we're experts on that we can talk about that'll be still a valuable episode?
Yeah.
Or is there someone that we know who might be free last minute? So those kinds of things have happened. People have canceled last minute on us. But as far as actually ghosting without any contact, I don't feel like that's actually happened.
I know that happened once on my older podcast. I can't remember who it was. It was like someone I didn't really want to interview anyways, but my co-hosted, so I really didn't mind, to be honest. They didn't really seem like a guest I'd be interested in anyway. So yeah, so no, I don't think so. Most people are pretty good about it. Like, keep in mind too, though, that most of the people that we ask to come on, they're usually industry people who are professional. There is the odd musician that we have on, but usually most of the musicians we have on are like on labels or they've been around the block or whatever. So
right, or they are very business oriented themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the main point, is business oriented, right? So if you're being invited to a business oriented podcast and you're super late or you're not showing up, it's going to just look really dumb on you. So
Yeah.
we're kind of lucky in that regard. So yeah.
We've had it,
Gotcha.
we won't say who, obviously, but we've had it happen twice where the person's just never shown up and then never replied to messages afterwards. And we waited like half an hour and be like, hey, are you coming on? No response. And then I'd send the message saying, hey, does something happen? It's totally fine if it did. Just let us know. We'll reschedule. Never hear from them again.
Oh,
I'm
that
curious
sucks.
if you're willing to let us know later who those two people were, because
Off the call.
Yeah,
the recording.
I can for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And the shame is that like they make good music, man. You
They
know,
do.
like, sucks.
Well, I just don't want to invite them to our podcast ever by mistake. This is why I'm asking.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we'll tell you after the show.
For sure. Have you had like an incident or like an interview that you've had to like totally cut scenes out of,
Yes, and
or
Aliyah
totally
heard this.
scrap altogether? Maybe.
Aliyah heard this story the other day because this was earlier in the C Squared podcast, and I'm not going to name names either. But a band on a major label was pitched to me and Corey in the beginning. For those of you who don't know, I used to have an earlier podcast before this, and I'm not going to name what the name is. But I already had contacts prior. So we like, when we first started, we were able to get some big names. Like we got Trevor Stranad from Black Dahlia. We had Michael Sweet from Striper, Blasco from Aussie, like all within like the first month. And that was because I already had contacts with these guys from the earlier podcast. So I'm just pre-framing this here. So why I got pitched by a major label in the beginning of the podcast, because it sounds weird. So this band we were asked to do an interview with, and we were told they were very business oriented. We were told that they knew what they were doing. And so we get them on the podcast. Me and Corey didn't really care for their music anyways. But a lot of critics did. And I've totally forgotten the name, so I will not be telling you after the podcast is over anyways, because it's blank. But we got on. The guy basically said they only got signed because they were friends with the label. And one of the guys had been in a previous successful band. They had never practiced before. Like everything was basically a fluke. And it was like one of the worst interviews I think we could have ever done for someone about business. Because he's like, I don't know. I don't handle any of this type of stuff. I have no idea. Nobody in the band really cares. We're just doing this as a hobby type of thing. And we were just like, you know what? That interview was accidentally not recorded.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
But I will say we have had to edit stuff too. Like sometimes we've had interviews where after the fact, someone will be like, actually, I shouldn't have spoken about that thing. Can't you edit it out?
Someone or something
And we
accidentally.
do that. We do that not all the time, but if people ask us to, we will do that. Or if something happens where Curtis's internet drops out twice during the call, like it did last night, I will edit the video together and cut out any awkward pauses, things like that. So yeah, that happens. Do you guys do that too?
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of having audio only, because it's so easy to edit that stuff.
Yeah, it's such a pain to edit the video if it happens. Like, adds like an hour to the production time.
The most common thing is like people's kids coming in. That happens more than you would think. Like people's children running into the room and like interrupting the interview.
Mine all the time.
Yeah. It's kind of fun though. It all depends on how it goes. Like usually, like most people are pretty chill. I don't think we've had anyone that's like, get the fuck out of here, or something like that. Like
I've done that on more than one podcast. I'm not going to deny it. I've done it.
we had one incident where Brendan's son actually came in, and before we could stop him, he explained the entire plot of an episode of Octonauts. And he's like, dude, I'm busy right now. He's like, yeah, but this happened, and then this, and then this. And it's like rattled through the whole episode. And then the guest was
That's hilarious.
the guest was like, can you please keep that in? Like, I want that in the episode. So we kept it in. It's
Yeah.
actually back
She
there
enjoyed
somewhere. But
One of my kids came in yelling that they pooed their
awesome.
pants when they were little on a podcast.
Oh,
oh.
I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, but
Actually, a live stream, not a podcast. I am sorry.
Oh.
It was live stream. And that
oh
was even-
no.
that's even better.
It was funny. It was funny. It was really funny. I was like, I have to pause this right now.
Everyone understood.
Yeah.
But yes, we have had the other thing you mentioned as well, where people have given away a secret or something they shouldn't have, like announced, like, oh, I shouldn't have announced that single yet. That's not actually public knowledge, or they've outed themselves as someone in another band, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. It's not public that I'm a member of that type thing. So
Yeah.
for sure.
So like, yeah, it's cool. It's fun. Yeah. Then we have to like note it in the podcast too. So then like James, you gotta like really listen when you do the edits. And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%.
Anything else, Brendan?
Well, what about what we got here?
While we're
If
waiting,
not, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Can I ask you about writing social media copy?
Yeah, sure.
What do you think are the common mistakes you see bands making in their social media writing?
One would definitely be proofreading. People really don't. Honestly, it's like such a simple thing.
Typos.
Yeah, people don't check it all the
Yeah.
time.
I do this. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Every now and then I let it slip myself as well. So it's understandable, but it is something that can pretty easily avoid it. And the other one is tagging the wrong accounts, and sometimes that is not anyone's fault. Yeah, that's like Meta does not make it easy with a scheduler to actually tag the right account. And it used to be easier, but the new what's it, Business Suite is not intuitive whatsoever with tagging. So that's something to keep an eye on. Every now and then it's a happy accident. I mean, it's happened once or twice for us where we've done it, and the person's like, "Hey, I'm not this person, but I'd love to come on the podcast," or like, "I'd love a review or something." Oh, cool. Okay, new fan.
Yeah. I remember I asked a band, and they're like, "Hey, we're not the band that you think we are. We play pop punk," and I'm like, "Oh, so okay, you happen to have the same name as this grindcore band, but yeah, it's just pretty funny."
Well, that's actually a good point of something else with social media as well, is like naming conventions of your band. It's like do something that stands out, because there are, like, if your band's called like Death, it's like, okay, well, how is someone going to find you? There's like 500 bands with that name. And like another really, this is from a reviewer's perspective, this is incredibly frustrating, is people that don't put an @ on their account on Facebook. Like when you set up your page, choosing an @ and so it just has like,
Yeah, I just
I mean?
recently had that happen with someone I was trying to tag their newer band, and they don't have an @ set up, and it's just like this series of numbers and letters. I'm like, and I can't get them to come up in the tags at all. I finally got a way to get them to come up, but yep, agreed.
It's frustrating when you're trying to tag someone. You spend like 3 or 4 minutes, and sometimes you're like, I just can't be bothered. I'm just not going to tag them. Social media copy as well is, I guess, keep it succinct. There doesn't need to be a lot. A post, most people aren't going to read more than, on average, like 250 characters is the cutoff point for most people. Some people will read more if it's captivating from the first 250, but in that space is where you really want to tag, like hook someone to actually read more.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
we will have to have them both on to talk about this at some point.
Or doing like little clips of live shows.
Yeah, that's very helpful as well.
You know,
sure.
You know,
my
then
band
you're like,
had-
oh wow, look at those guys rocking! Like, you know, like damn, they're killing it. You know, and then you're like, I want to see that, and then it makes people want to, like, you know, keep an eye out for them in a way.
And one that people don't think about: each platform has its own best practice for number of hashtags, which massively affects the way the algorithm picks it up. Twitter's the least. Twitter, it recommends 3 or less. Instagram is 8 or less. And Facebook doesn't really work the same way. It's more someone searches for a specific hashtag, but it doesn't actually push your content in a search. So if someone searches like hashtag death metal, they'll find that, but otherwise it's not going to show in the newsfeed or something like that. Different operating model.
I didn't even know that people even used hashtags on Twitter anymore. This is news to me. That's cool.
On Twitter, yeah. I don't see them very often.
Not as frequent as it used to be.
Well, because you can search by just text now on Twitter.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not as necessary.
Mm.
Twitter's like the Wild West right now. It's
very true.
It's a very weird place this past 6 to 12 months.
I feel like bands also just don't do as well, generally speaking, on Twitter.
I have a
Band
rant
accounts.
again. I don't believe that because I haven't seen any real changes in Twitter. I keep hearing people talking about changes in Twitter and saying that there's changes in Twitter, but I haven't actually seen any of the changes that anybody's talking about. It's like, you got less reach. I'm like, I don't have less reach. My followers increased by like 500 or 600. I don't know what everybody else is doing, but I keep hearing, Elon fucked it up. And I'm like, okay, maybe he did, but I'm not noticing a difference. I'm like, literally, you're the social media expert though, but I'm not seeing shit. So
I would say that it's more so from like a big company or business perspective than it is from like a smaller band perspective.
Fair.
And that's because the whole blue checkmark thing was one of the biggest changes. It kind of stripped the fact of how.
That didn't affect me. I don't have a blue check, so
yeah, there you go. Well, now you can. Now you can for $13 a month, and it means nothing.
I don't want one. I don't want one. I never wanted one. Never needed one. So
yeah, it's just it kind of takes away the legitimacy of having one because you're no longer a public figure for having one. You're just someone that's willing to pay $13, which means it basically means nothing. And the other thing is he's thrown some features in. So if you do pay for that, there are features. So like you can edit a post after posting, which you couldn't do before, which would be handy to fix typos or tags or anything like that, but still not worth $13 a month. And then it's taken away the word limit.
Yeah.
But again,
I don't see a decrease in reach though. So
yeah. No one really goes on Twitter to read a paragraph though. So it's is there really a point in that?
Something that I've seen is also subscriptions now. So, like, you can't see someone's tweets unless you're subscribed to them, which I assume is a paid sort of.
Yes,
do that, Leah. We should totally do that.
No,
we're gonna do it as a trial. Heavy business.
I'm not subscribed to anyone on Twitter. I just am like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to see your tweets anymore.
Instagram's added it too now.
Yeah, I saw that.
Really?
Yeah, and Instagram. Okay, so Instagram added this feature, and it is one of the best things they've added in a while, in my opinion. Have you seen the channels? Like the chat channels?
I didn't understand. I keep seeing notifications, but I never actually checked it out myself.
So basically you establish a channel and anyone who follows you can see that their channel's there. It doesn't automatically invite them, but they're able to join. And you can invite people if you choose to. And basically no one can talk in there except people that you grant access. So it's just a really, really good way to communicate as a band with your followers. So anyone that's in that chat will get a notification in their inbox when you post. So you can use like, hey, album's out next week. Here's the pre-order link, or touring next month. So I think it's a really cool feature that can be used by bands and record labels very effectively.
It's kind of like a hybrid of Discord server and DMs or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I think and they've added it now in Facebook groups as well. So there's a version of that in Facebook groups too now.
Who uses Facebook for anything, though?
I did notice that because I've joined, older people generally, Curtis.
Well, other than our group chats.
Do you ever notice, like, there's a difference between the bands that do well on Instagram and the bands that do well on Facebook? And the bands that do well on Facebook are, like, the ones that cater to an older audience, usually.
Yes, and the ones that do better on Instagram are definitely much more multimedia focused. It's much more with images, videos, that sort of thing, stories.
Yeah, the reels.
Yeah, 100%. And the Reels thing, like, it's become essential. You have to do Reels now to actually reach the audiences because they've optimized the algorithm that is preferential treatment towards accounts that use Reels and towards Reels themselves with reach. So it's just, you have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually doing a photo post and I was debating whether to do it as a carousel or as a reel. I ended up doing it as a carousel collage thing, because I just don't like any of the templates that I see for like the photo slideshows or whatever. But I don't know. It probably would have done better as a reel, but I didn't do that anyway.
It's when we started doing a new format where we just have like minute-long videos talking about albums or bands or promoting stuff, and it's just a new content type for us, easy to make, and it performs really well. But we had to figure out, did we want to do it as a standard video on the feed, or did we want to do the reel thing? And we went with reel, and it was definitely worth it.
Yes.
We did A/B testing on both, and the performance on the reel was like, it was within the first half hour, like 600 views versus like 50. So
yeah, for any video I ever post, it's always as a reel. So that's good to know. I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
There's so many things that like no one teaches anyone with social media, that unless you actually work in the industry, you're not going to figure that stuff out. And it's like it doesn't work to band's advantage, and it is unfortunate that it's not common knowledge, and it should be more common.
Yeah, I'm lucky that I actually.
Yeah, it's true.
I actually have a friend who's kind of like an influencer, and a cosplayer, and she does this social posting a little bit more as a business thing. And so a lot of times when there are changes, she does get information on it, and she'll just tell me, she'll be like, hey, this is what's changing, this is what's going on. So I get that information from her. But if I didn't know her, I probably wouldn't know what to do either.
Right. And then the other thing, I mean, this is my least favorite thing about social media, is the pay to play aspect of it. That's kind of become built into the algorithm, where basically you have to make a sacrifice to the machine every so often to refresh your algorithm, or it starts to dip down. So they want you to constantly have some sort of ad spend trickling in, even if it's a couple of bucks here and there, it boosts things. So yeah. And then the best kept secret, honestly, in my opinion, as far as social media platforms go, and the user base isn't the best, but functionality wise, hands down, the best platform, Tumblr. I only figured that out at the start of the year. They did a revamp on how you can post.
Really?
Yeah. Have a look. Like after this,
I still haven't checked it out yet.
Go check it out.
We definitely don't have a Tumblr, so I'll have to look into it.
I had a Tumblr when I was Dewar PR, but I don't anymore.
I've never had a Tumblr.
I never had one till now, but I really like the functionality. Like again, the reach isn't there because the audience isn't what it used to be, type thing. But it's really easy to post these, copy paste basically, and you can just, there's one more place you can be. But the reason I like it is because you can do multiple different embeds in your post itself. So you can have a heading, an image, text body, where you can actually tag, hyperlink to other things. So you can actually have clickable links within your body text.
So it's like a blog.
It's like a blog. And then you can also do like a Bandcamp player embed, a Spotify player embed, as many as you want, like multiple embeds, YouTube video embed, links, and then hashtags. So it's like, it's got everything basically in one post, which is really cool.
I'm looking at it right now as we talk.
Nice.
Yeah, I just wish more people used it, because it's like from someone who does anything with multimedia, it's like the best option out there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be really good for like reviews.
Yes.
And stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That's what we use it for. So we have like
the
album title, image of the album art, description, and then like the player of the album, link to our review. Perfect.
Done.
It looks really good. I can say that much. Now, the effectiveness is another question, like you said, but it does look very good. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of hoping the other platforms kind of catch on to that. Oh, people like this functionality and start doing the same thing, because that'd be really cool. Yeah, and maybe you're going to be like an early adopter of the new version, and then you get all the followers. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Brendan, you got any other questions there?
Well, I guess in Shield the Wings, what's your favorite venue?
My favorite venue? Oh, well, we've only been playing live with this lineup since September, and we've played 5 shows.
Okay.
So yeah, I've liked elements of all of the venues that we've played. My favorite one is the Forge in Joliet, because it's close and very professional. But I also really, really liked playing at Reggie's, the legendary historic venue. We just played there last week. And but yeah, all the venues we've played at have been really good. Even the smaller venues, like we played one called Livewire Lounge, and it's a very, very small, like under 100 cap place, like 80 person venue. And they had great sound and really good staff. So yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if that's really a helpful answer, but yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, just
Which
asking about the
venue
local
was-
scene, really.
Which venue was the Visions of Atlantis one, Aliyah? You
That was
guys-
at WC Social Club, and I like that they offered Liquid Death sparkling water because I don't drink alcohol, and so I like having something fun and bubbly to drink.
You guys
And
look
not
like
all of the
you're
venues
comfortable at that
offer
venue,
that.
so that's why I asked. Just based on the clips, it looked like you guys are pretty comfortable there. That's why I
Yeah. And the venues, most of them had lights actually, so that was always nice. It seems like kind of a burden to have to bring in your own lighting setup, but I know there are like a good series of smaller venues where you'd have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Right on.
Also, just to say props to Liquid Death for how well they've done in the market. Honestly, that's
Seriously,
I love
It's so
it.
ridiculous. I love it.
Yeah.
I know it's all branding, but they got me.
No, they got
Yeah.
everyone. Like I don't want to be like I did it before it was cool, but I found them like super early on when they were just kind of starting out. And I've been following their journey since, and it's just awesome to see. Like they're in every supermarket now, they're at every venue. Like they've just cornered the market in that aspect. It's awesome to see.
I personally
Yeah.
don't get it. I don't drink booze either, but I don't get it.
It's water.
Yeah, I know. I okay. So I only found out about Liquid Death due to last year because I Bradley Zorgdrager. I don't know if you guys know him. He had cases of it. I went to his place, and he's like, "Have a Liquid Death." I open it, and I'm like, "It's fucking water."
Oh well, okay.
Yeah, it's great. I'm like, "It's water." I'm like expecting sparkling or something, and it's like
They do have
literally
sparkling
water.
flavored water now, Curtis. They have
But what he
mango
gave me
and
was
berry
like some
and
fruits of it.
lime.
It was just water.
They have it out of
I'm
Palmer, too.
trying to understand.
Yeah.
this. I didn't get it, but anyways, I mean, I wanted water. It was good. I just
Yeah.
get it.
I work.
It's just branding. It just shows how powerful the branding
It
is.
is. It's branding's super important, man. I work for a brewery, and we do CBD water, so I'm drinking right now. And
CBD water? That's a thing, really?
yeah. So
Oh,
it's
I
like
don't get it.
sparkling CBD water, you know.
Huh.
Yeah, they're all flavored.
Very good.
It's like grapefruit and tangerine and stuff like that, and
Huh.
blueberries, acai, and fun stuff. Real neat flavors. But yeah, we sell a lot of it through like our Shopify. Like a lot of people that like I don't know, that like CBD, just they buy it and all over the country. It's pretty
I
cool.
didn't even know that was a thing. That's brand new news to me. Maybe
Yeah,
you
actually,
don't-
one of the venues, Reggie's actually carries a CBD like cider. It's non-alcoholic.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's different from what you guys have, but it's just like they had like pear mango, I think was one of them. But anyway, yeah, they have that there, and I've had that a couple times as well because I just don't drink alcohol. So
Yeah, it's fun stuff. But
yeah.
with the branding though, like it's it's got to be flashy, it's got to be neat, and catches your eye. And they do they do commercials and stuff like that, like all that kind of stuff. Like you got to be in people's faces all the time.
What I really liked is that one of their biggest marketing tactics was posting the negative reviews they got and making a really big deal out of that. And see, like, just posts and posts of people saying this is stupid, this is just water, like I don't get it, like that, and people getting angry about the marketing, like it's satanic and like why they want water to bring us death and stuff. It's a smart marketing ploy, in my opinion. The negative,
It's like
negative
murder
marketing.
your thirst.
It's like with bands, like if there's a really terrible review, if I have a client that's got a really terrible review, I'm like, you should share this. It's gonna, like, people are gonna like the fact that this guy got so angry about your music. Like,
Yeah.
It's one strategy.
yeah. If it's like just a negative review, like I didn't really like the guitars, like it's kind of negative, not really. But if it's like wow, this guy's like furious that this album exists, it's kind of funny to that point that people are like, okay, this is hilarious. Like, why did this guy get so mad about this album?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck on the CBD water. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
The funniest review I ever saw from a client of mine was a German language blog, and he referred to the album as poopy toilet water. I was like,
Wow.
it's very professional. It's big brain energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me no
Yeah.
like
I mean, I'd have a hard time sharing a negative review, but like even one that was maybe even especially one that's super mean, because I feel like I think what you have to be able to do is disconnect yourself from being insulted, disconnect yourself from being emotional about it at all, and then you can be funny about it.
Right.
I just realized, Aliyah, we know someone that works for Liquid Death, and we could probably get them on to talk about branding. So
That's
awesome.
That would be dope. Let's do it.
And he's been a previous guest on the podcast, and I just realized he works for Liquid Death. So remind me.
And we didn't ask him about that before?
I don't think he worked with Liquid Death back then, because this would have been 2-3 years ago. So I just popped in my head because I was like, he always posts about Liquid Death. I think he works for them. And he does.
That's cool. I see people wearing their hats everywhere, like
I've got a
stickers on cars. You know, it's in people's faces.
It's because if you order the stuff delivered, you get points, and every certain number of points they give you a free merchandise item, so you can get a shirt or a hat or stickers, whatever stubby coolers for free, which is smart.
Are you still able to sign over your soul for a case?
You are. You're going to do it once though.
That's a real promotion. That's good. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I feel weird about it. I don't know.
I don't think I would want to do it.
It seems a bit weird, but I mean, like, you know, a few dozen or a lifetime supply. I mean, sure, but I mean, one.
Like my soul is worth more than one case of water.
Sparkling water. It's got to be.
Cool. Well, I've noticed we're coming up on time. So I just before we go over, I this is a question I ask everyone that comes on the show. So I'll ask you as well. It's going to put you on the spot a little bit, but if you were stranded on a desert island and you could only bring 3 CDs to listen to until you were rescued, and you had a solar powered discman, so you're not going to run out of energy to play it, what would you bring to listen to?
I already know, but I'll let Aliyah do it first.
No, if you already know, do yours first so I can think.
Okay, River Runs Red by Life of Agony, Too Fast for Love by Motley Crue, and Trouble Gum by Therapy. Bam.
Wow. You're ready for it.
Yeah, you are ready for it. I think for me,
actually, I want to change my mind, but I'm not going
to. Nightwish's Once is going to be my symphonic metal pick.
If you didn't pick that, I was going to say that there's something wrong with it.
Well, see, I have to pick between, because I was thinking, I would also want Within Temptations, the Silent Force, but they're kind of similar in genre, and I want some variety, so I'm going to stick with just Nightwish Once, and then Rotting Christ, Ayalo. I think Ayalo.
Yes. Good choice. Yeah. That is like the most riff-filled, groovy
it's
album.
So good.
I love it so much.
Yeah. And maybe Borknagar True North.
Nice.
Didn't you pick 4? Oh, no, you didn't put him Within Temptation. I thought you cheated.
No, I didn't cheat because I limited my symphonic metal to 1. So I could have variety.
Yeah, Curtis, what would your alternative pick had been, the one you were considering changing out?
I had like 4 or 5 pop into my head. So, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Cause of Death by Obituary, Deicide, self-titled were just a couple. Then I was also thinking Shout at the Devil might be good as well. Something else popped into my head now, just ran away, but yeah.
Great. All good picks.
What are your guys's?
Oh, it changes all the time. It's like that's the question, because we ask it so much to other people. I'm always thinking about it, and it keeps changing. Number one, you go first, Brendan. Yeah,
I was gonna say I'd bring the Crow soundtrack.
That's a good choice.
That's super smart because then you get a ton of artists.
Yeah,
it's got a couple stinkers on it, but it's almost the whole thing's good except for like 1 or 2.
Yeah, there's like a couple roll like kind of sleepy songs.
Yeah,
but and then the Judgment Night soundtrack.
That one's
there's more variety. It's fun, I think. And then I don't know, Yellow and Green Baroness.
I don't know if I've heard that one. No, I haven't. Yellow and Green, I must have. Yeah.
For me, it would have to be. I'm going to go with Death's Symbolic. I'm going to do Triptychon's debut album, the one straight after the Chain from Celtic Frost. And then to mix it up, Annabelle Dream Reader by the Witches.
Cool. I don't know that one.
I don't know that one either.
It's
check it out.
It's like a one hit. Okay, so if you listen to them, only listen to that album. It was this thing where they came out of the gate swinging and made this literally perfect album, and then everything they've done has been like a pale imitation since. But it's a mix of like psychedelic rock and surf rock. It's and noise rock. So those three genres. It's just like insanely groovy and like so catchy. You just cannot stop listening to the songs except stop singing them.
Actually,
Sounds
Rust
cool.
in Peace by Megadeth. How do they forget that?
It's classic.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, for anyone who wants to follow your podcast, check out your services, any of that stuff, what are the best places to find all of that?
There's one spot. Go to csquared.info. You got everything there. You got the podcast. You got our playlists. You got our list of clients. You got how to contact us. You got literally everything we offer under the sun, moon, and stars. Except I don't think our personal names are on it. But other than that, csquared.info.
Nice.
And they can find you on most socials as well, from what I've seen.
Sort of. I mean, we
So
kind of
Squared
let
as
the
a company?
Yeah, we kind of let the Twitter kind of slide because me and Aliyah both got lazy and we decided not to run the Twitters. We just do our own personals, and Corey does her own personal, and so does Holly. Instagram is being run daily. Facebook as well, but Twitter and TikTok are just always.
And the handles on Instagram and Facebook are C Squared Music, I believe.
No, it's C Squared MM2, unless I changed it and I forgot. 1 second, I can tell you.
C Squared MM2 is the @ yeah, but the
right.
name of the Facebook page is C Squared Music, and the @ is C Squared MM2. You're right, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same on Instagram. I'm looking now.
Yeah, I should know these things, and I forget.
No worries. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And we ran out of time, obviously, but I'm sure we could have kept talking about a lot of great topics. So if you ever want to come back on, we'd love to have you back sometime.
Right on. Thank you.
Awesome. And for anyone at home who's listening, thank you for tuning in, and we'll have another guest for you next week.